What's happening, musical athletes? Trumpeter Bobby Spellman here. And my all-time favorite trumpet exercises are called lip slurs or flexibilities. In fact, I like these exercises so much that I wrote an entire book of them entitled Progressive Flexercises for Trumpet. Today, I wanted to go over a couple of tips that I find very helpful in practicing flexibility exercises on this exciting episode of Trumpet with Bob. Flexibilities are my favorite kinds of trumpet exercises because they serve to do a couple of things simultaneously. First, they are super effective at building the muscles in the corners of your lips and in your face, which are required for endurance and range, among other things. Second, flexibility exercises are great at teaching you how to use your air efficiently and how to move your muscles efficiently in time in order to make it easy to be able to move around the various registers of the trumpet. Now, the foundation of my approach to flexibility exercises comes from the great Carmine Caruso and the Caruso method, which I learned from Laurie Frink and especially from John McNeil, who I studied with for many years. Laurie Frink and John McNeil famously wrote the book Flexus, one of the great modern trumpet method books. And if you are familiar with the Caruso exercises, the Caruso method, or with Flexus and the teachings of Laurie Frink and John McNeil, some of these ideas may be familiar to you. These tips that I will talk about today will be helpful no matter what kind of flexibility exercises you're working from, whether it be the exercises in Flexus or, for example, the exercises from Scott Belk's Modern Flexibilities for Brass. But if you would like to follow along and try some of my own exercises out from my new book, Progressive Flexercises for Trumpet, you can find a link to digital copies as well as physical copies of this book in the description below. What I've done with Progressive Flexercises for Trumpet is to write a series of 50 exercises, and the purpose is twofold. Number one, I wanted the exercises to be melodic and fun to play so that you'd actually want to do them. So I would want to do them because I get bored easily. I want to do, practice exercises that I think are fun. And secondly, I wanted to write a series of exercises that would get increasingly difficult over the chapters. So that's the progressive part. You're starting off with one partial at a time, and as the book progresses, the range increases and the spread between the notes, the intervals, widen so that you're slurring over more partials rather than just one at a time. All right, so we'll talk a little bit more about that, but let's dive into a couple of tips and tricks that I think are very useful in approaching flexibility exercises. Tip number one, you always want to put the emphasis first and foremost on your air support. Your air support is the foundation of all of this, and it is really the most important component in playing flexibility exercises. In following with the Caruso method, you want to make sure that you're keeping a steady airstream, and you want to make sure that you take a big breath before you play. You're really controlling the exhalation with your abdominal muscles and with your external obliques, and you always want to make sure that that air support is steady so that you are able to feel as though you can easily ride that airstream across the registers. All right, so let me give you a quick demonstration of that. Now, you always want to start out with a full tank of air and practice taking a big breath so as to make sure that you have enough air to make it through an entire exercise. From there, you want to make sure that you're keeping your airstream steady. And in doing that, you will be able to ride that airstream and you will feel as though the air is propelling you across the various registers of the trumpet. Now, if I were to play inconsistently and use my air in a more sort of erratic fashion, that might sound a little something like this. Now, you don't want to do that for a couple of reasons. Number one, because it causes you to have to change volumes all the time. It's an inefficient approach to playing, and you'll feel that in your muscles because you're always changing the air. But most importantly, it's going to lead to inconsistencies in accuracy. You want to make sure that you're using your airstream consistently so that you can be accurate with where you're placing the notes. All right, tip number 2 is to try to move as little as possible while you're playing these exercises. Now, if your airstream is consistent, you will find that it is much easier to reduce any excessive motion in your face But one thing that you can do is to play in front of a mirror and keep an eye out and make sure that you're using your air efficiently so as to reduce unnecessary motion in your face. You will have to move a little bit, your muscles will have to move around a little bit, but you want to try to reduce that motion as much as possible. Related to tip number 2 is tip number 3, which is when playing flexibility exercises, you want to try to keep the mouthpiece in contact with your lips throughout either an entire exercise or each segment of the exercise. The reason for this is that it is easy to inadvertently switch your embouchure, move your embouchure around in order to change registers. And in practicing these kinds of exercises, your job is to try to develop good habits of being able to move around the entire range of the trumpet without having to shift your embouchure or to shift the position of the mouthpiece on your face. One of the ways that Caruso recommended people do this in his exercises is to breathe through the nose rather than the mouth while playing the exercises. So to stop to breathe, you can stop at any time, leave the mouthpiece on your face, and breathe through your nose. The value of this, again, is just to prevent you from moving the mouthpiece on your face unnecessarily in order to change the registers. All right, tip number 4 is to play these kinds of exercises in time. This is certainly a revelation that I gained from the Caruso method, and the idea here is just that what you're doing is you're training your muscles how to move in time. Caruso believed that a lot of playing the trumpet was teaching your muscles to move in time, and that has been very helpful for me. So the idea here is whatever tempo you happen to play, try to keep a consistent tempo so as to teach your muscles how to make those moves within a particular time frame. Now this is related to my 5th tip, which is to play any exercise, this is true of any kind of exercise, but especially flexibility exercises, as slowly as you need to in order to play them accurately. Your goal, again, is to get your body to absorb these good habits, to get into these good habits that you're teaching it. And in order to do that, the best bet is to take everything slowly and to try to be as accurate as possible. If you're playing faster than you're comfortable playing, then you're going to teach your body to get into bad habits and you're not going to get the most out of these kinds of exercises. But if you take it whatever tempo it needs to be, there's no tempo that's too slow. The goal is always accuracy first and then speed. And what you will find is that accuracy leads to speed. So again, if I'm practicing an exercise like this, I might take it very slowly at first to ensure that as I move across, for example, 2 partials at once or 3 partials at once, I'm really nailing the center of each pitch and I'm able to land right where I want to. So you can hear I'm trying to take this exercise very slowly, but still in time, so as to teach my muscles specifically how to get to where they need to be in time. From there, you will find practicing these kinds of exercises that the more you do them, the faster you will be able to do them, but you will be doing them accurately first, and then the speed will come. All right, my 6th tip is another concept that comes from the Caruso method, and this is a phrase that he uses in his book that I love, and he says, play with abandon. The idea here is that because you're trying to use your air efficiently, it makes more sense oftentimes to kind of overdo it and to, play in such a way that you are really taking advantage of the physicality of the instrument more than trying to be super musical and super tender with the way that you're playing melodies. So let me try to describe that because it's a little confusing. Sometimes, especially when moving over 2 partials at once, our inclination is to try to be very musical with a particular phrase and try to be delicate in the way that we play it. But the best bet when dealing with these kinds of exercises is to start off with a lot of air and really trying to use that air to move these notes around, even if it means that you might get a little slop in between. So for example, if I'm practicing slurring from the middle B flat to the high B flat, my goal ultimately is to be able to connect those notes in a fluid way so that it sounds good. In the process of practicing it, however, I may skip over the partials in between. It might sound like this. But it's better to hit those partials in between because I know that I'm using my air to connect those notes than it would be if I tried to detach the two notes in order for it to just sound more musical. That might be something like this. In that instance, I'm trying to be so delicate with the notes that I'm not taking advantage of an efficiency of the use of my air in order to move those notes around. If you continue to practice these kinds of exercises, playing with abandon and really embracing the physicality of the instrument, you will find very quickly that you can smooth out those kinds of transitions between partials, and it becomes easier to do. Then you can apply these concepts not only to other flexibility exercises, but also to the music that you are playing. All right, finally, that brings us to my 7th tip today, which is to play through these kinds of exercises to the point where you can feel yourself starting to get tired, but then take a break. You always want to rest in between these kinds of exercises because they can be very strenuous on your muscles. So if, for example, in my own book, each of these exercises is to be played with all 7 fingerings on the trumpet. So I may start with 1, 2, and 3 and move up chromatically. I may find by the time I get to 1, which is usually B flat major, I am tired. In that case, I will stop and rest for as long as I have been playing. That's sort of the general rule of thumb, is rest as long as you played. So if I was working on these kinds of exercises for 10 minutes and I started to get tired, then I would take a break for 10 minutes, do something else, and then come back to it and start where I left off. Resting in this way will help to build muscle, and it will help to reinforce good habits, because once you start to get tired, if you practice exercises like this while tired, you can reinforce bad habits, such as moving more than you want to, having the muscles in your face move unnecessarily, or pinching notes off, or using your air in an inefficient way, or especially jamming the horn into your face and using excess pressure. So the goal here is always to reinforce good habits as you're practicing exercises like this so that they will become a part of your playing in any kind of musical context. If you're using your air efficiently, if you are focused on playing these exercises in time as slowly as you need to in order to play them accurately, if you've got enough air to begin with, if you are efficient in the way that you're playing these things, all of this will reinforce the, positive qualities of your trumpet playing, and you will feel stronger as you go. However, if you're trying to practice these exercises and you're not using your air efficiently, then you'll find you have to try to pinch the notes off, or you have to try to jam the horn into your face, or you may get into some other bad habits that will not serve you well in trying to gain facility across the registers of the instrument. But with these 7 tips, thinking about using your air efficiently, and then, practicing these kinds of exercises slowly in time, playing with abandon, for example, all this other stuff, you will find that these kinds of exercises become easier and easier as you go. So if you want to try out these exercises for yourself, you can find a copy of my book, Progressive Flexercises for Trumpet, in the description below. It goes through 5 chapters, starting off with fairly simple exercises, moving over 1 partial. Then as the chapters progress, it moves over 2 partials, expands the range. There's chapter 4 is on range itself. It talks about the upper register, and chapter 5 is all kinds of wild angular stuff, and it's a lot of fun for me to work on, and I hope you will have fun as well. All right, gang, if you like this video, give us a like, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to do a couple more videos on flexibility exercises like this one, so if you like this kind of thing, be sure to subscribe to the channel. You can also support the creation of videos like this one at our Patreon page at the link right here. And if you would like lessons in trumpet or jazz improvisation or any number of other musical instruments, either online or in the New York City area, you can find us on our website at www.ridgewoodschoolofmusic.com, or send us an email at ridgewoodschoolofmusic@gmail.com. All right, gang, I hope you had some fun with that. Have a wonderful time practicing, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya. Trumpet with Bob.